One of the most intriguing parts of British history occurred during what has become known as the Dark Ages. In a post-Roman land, the Germanic tribes of Angles, Saxons and Jutes formed 7 kingdoms in Britain. They vied for supremacy and dominion over the entire realm in what has been referred to as the Heptarchy.
The knowledge we built up from this period comes from a mixture of archaeological evidence and a few key sources, most of which date from the 9th century, such as the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. It's important to note that there are many differing and contradictory accounts of what occurred in these sources, which makes piecing together the exact turn of events a difficult task.
The year is 410 AD. After years of raids from Picts, Gaels, and Saxons, plus trouble for the Empire on the mainland, Romano-Britain is on the brink of disrepair. The ever-dwindling protection provided by the Emperor of the western part of the Empire, Constantine, caused only further unrest amongst the people.
Frightened by the increasingly fierce raids and enraged by Constantine's decision to take the majority of his soldiers to the continent in aid of Rome, the Britons had little choice but to expel Constantine and his magistrates, while simultaneously pleading for help from the Roman Emperor, Honorius. However, the decaying Roman Empire, ravaged by Visigoths and Ostrogoths, was unable to send aid, or even respond to the plea. As a result, the people revolted from imperial rule, never to return under the control of the Roman Empire. It was the dawn of a new age, and the Britons now had to rally themselves for protection against the raids plaguing their shores.
The coastline to the southeast has been referred to as the Saxon Shore, as it was here that the Saxon, Angles and Jutish mainland raiders would often land. Although the Angles and Saxons, as the name Anglo-Saxon suggests, were the dominant invaders, it was a tribe from Jutland who struck first. In 449, 2 warleaders, Hengist and Horsa, led a band of mercenaries from the peninsula of Jutland to Britain at the behest of a British warlord named Vortigern.
The Britons would provide provisions and a base of operations in the Isle of Thanet, and in exchange, Hengist and Horsa would lead their armies against the Picts and Scots, whose raids were wreaking havoc in the north of the realm. With the terms settled, both sides were happy to fulfill their duties, for a time.
On behalf of Vortigern, this allegiance, even though pragmatic, was short-sighted, and before long, Hengist and Horsa began demanding more in exchange for their services. At first, the Britons agreed, and it was one of these concessions which would prove particularly dangerous for Vortigern and his people, the allowance of Jutish bases inland, rendering their coastal fortresses useless. Gildas, a 6th century historian, reflected upon this as follows. They sealed Britain's doom by inviting in among them, like wolves into the sheepfold, the fierce and imperious Saxons, a race hurtful to God and men.
The alliance was becoming increasingly hostile. The Britons began to both fear and despise Horsa and Hengist for what their increasing demands would lead to. Vortimer, the son of Vortigern, raised an army, with the intention of launching an attack on the Jutes. Over the coming years there were to be 4 big battles between the Britons and their former allies. Battles in which both sides would suffer heavy losses.
In early 455, a fierce battle took place at Aylesford. The Britons, who were led by either Vortimer or Vortigern himself, battled against Hengist and Horsa's armies. Going by the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle's version of events, it was here that the Jutish invaders won a decisive victory. Despite Horsa being slain, Hengist was able to push the Britons back to a bad defeat, with him and his son Oisc becoming rulers of Kent. They fought again in 456, this time at Crayford. Hengist and Oisc defeated the Britons yet again and forced the natives to flee to London, deserting Kent to the Jutish invaders. There were 2 more battles that cemented Hengist and his son's position in the region of Kent. One in 465 at Whipt's Fliot, and one in 473 at an unknown location.
The story told by Historia Britonum, however, is vastly different, claiming that Vortimer met the Jutes in 4 battles, but with different outcomes. In these accounts, the son of Vortigern demonstrated great prowess, as stated in chapter 43 of the text.
At length, Vortimer, the son of Vortigern, valiantly fought against Hengist, Horsa, and his people, drove them to the Isle of Thanet, and thrice enclosed them within it, and beset them on the western side.
While Vortimer had proven himself to be a formidable commander, both sides had suffered brutal losses throughout these wars, characterised by the death of Horsa and the brother of Vortimer, Catigern. Neither side gained too much from the battles, and Hengist did not gain the British land he so craved.
To achieve this goal, the source states how Hengist invited Vortigern to a banquet at his halls, where he plied the British warlord with ale and wine until the devil entered Vortigern's heart, and then proposed a diabolical deal. Vortigern, drunk and enamoured with Hengist's daughter, Rowena, agreed to trade the Kingdom of Kent in return for a hand in marriage. Hengist finally had his land.
There's another, semi-legendary version of events that could have led to the formation of the First Kingdom. It has become known as the treachery of the Long Knives. With both sides battered and mourning the losses of their respective leaders, Horsa and Categern, it was agreed a banquet would be held to establish a peace treaty of perpetual friendship between the two enemies. Hengist and his Jutish army, however, were determined not to be bested. He ordered his soldiers to sneak in knives, some allegedly in the soles of their shoes. They slaughtered the attending Britons with whom they had just broken bread, all except Vortigern, who had been saved by his marriage to Rowena. The legitimacy of such an event is debatable. However, if it did occur, this act of treachery would have been the final and utterly devastating blow to the Britons, and could explain why they retreated and left Kent to Hengist and his Jutes.
Although both the Historia Brittonum and the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle provide different circumstances, the outcome of this period is the same. Once the alliance between the Brits and the Jutes had ended, Hengist and his army were able to drive back the British warlord Vortigern from the southeast. The Jutish leader, with his son Oisc, were able to colonise the land and proclaim themselves kings. A new age had dawned in Britain. The first kingdom of the Anglo-Saxon Heptarchy had emerged, the Kingdom of Kent.